Marathon talks over the Ukrainian crisis finally bear fruit. Leaders of Ukraine, Russia, Germany and France have made a ceasefire deal at the Minsk peace talks. Russian President Vladimir Putin says the ceasefire will come into force as of mid-February. Putin also says the leaders agreed on the withdrawal of heavy weapons from Ukraine's volatile regions. The Ukrainian government and pro-Russian forces have signed off on a roadmap to implement the deal. The agreement comes after 16 hours of negotiations in the Belarusian capital. The four-way meeting has been mediated by German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande. Well, for more on this, let's go to Moscow and talk to Dmitry Babich, radio host with Voice of Russia. Welcome, sir. Mr. Babich, a ceasefire deal has been made at the Minsk talks. Just how likely do you think this ceasefire would be respected by both sides? And if not, what would the consequences be?
I would say that this agreement, at least what we have heard from President Putin about it, and also bits of what we heard from President Hollande, this agreement looks more like a declaration of intentions because it obviously contains a lot of contradictions. And of course, the likelihood that hostilities can restart or in fact continue, that likelihood is very high. However, it's important that the document was also signed by the representatives of the Donetsk People's Republic and Lugansk People's Republic, the two separatist formations which do not want to leave under the new regime in Kiev, which came to power thanks to a coup d'etat. So the representatives of these two republics also signed this agreement, which presupposes that fighting will stop and heavy weapons will be withdrawn to a safe distance from the front line, which now divides the two sides. And the Ukrainian forces will have to respect the current front line, and the self-defense forces will withdraw behind the line that had been agreed on the 19th of September last year. So the danger is there. There are many contradictions inside this agreement. For example, the agreement presupposes disbanding all the so-called illegal armed formations. For Kiev, the illegal armed formations, these are the self-defense forces of Donbass, these two regions. And for these people in Donbass, the illegal armed formations, these are the so-called voluntary battalions and the National Guard of Ukraine, which consists of radical Ukrainian nationalists. In fact, I'm afraid that both sides are going to accuse each other of not respecting this agreement in the future. But at least there is a glimmer of hope that at a certain stage peace will prevail.
But of course, all sides in these talks agreed to the withdrawal of heavy weapons. Now, how well would this sit with Washington that has promised more lethal weapons to Kiev?
Washington was not present at these talks, and it shows that Washington is more interested in the victory of its allies, Mr. Poroshenko and his team, and not in the preservation of human lives. Of course, the danger is there, and it's very symbolic that after the talks, Mr. Poroshenko, the so-called Ukrainian president, went out and he said that there is no good news. And then Mr. Putin came out and he said that there was an agreement on the ceasefire, and this is good news, this is a good morning. It shows you who wants to win and who wants to preserve human lives.
All right, we'll leave it there for the time being. Many thanks to Dmitry Babich, radio host with Voice of Russia from Moscow. Thanks for your thoughts there, sir.